Welcome back to 110 Daily on the 110 Sports Network. Josh Doring is here with me. All right, Josh, serious question. Gonzaga versus the Knicks.
The Knicks.
Are you sure?
Yes. Would it be competitive? Probably.
But okay. RJ Barrett or Corey Kispert, probably RJ Barrett, but slightly. Yeah. Do you really want whatever the Knicks are going to put in the backcourt over Jalen Suggs and Joel Ayayi? Like, really?
Probably not, but I'm taking Obi Toppin over every player on Gonzaga. And Mitchell Robinson.
Are you sure, though?
Yes.
Are you positive that if Gonzaga played the way that they played on Saturday, that they wouldn't beat the Knicks?
Oh, absolutely.
Are you sure?
You want to know why?
Why?
Because they turned the ball over 18 times.
And the Knicks take such good care of the basketball?
No, but if they turn the ball over 18 times against...
I'm not actually saying this is my least favorite argument in sports is that of course the professional team is going to win because they have professional players.
Right.
But my point is that Gonzaga might have a bunch like seven professional players. I don't really think that they would beat the Knicks, but my point being, and you would take, I suppose that's fair. That's a really good basketball team. And despite turning the ball over a bunch, and despite playing an Iowa team that got 30 points from Luka Garza, and a team that is super dangerous offensively, the game was never super competitive. I mean, never super close. Like they took control in the first half, going 9 of 14 from deep, and it wasn't like I was never worried about it again. They've played the best schedule in the country, and they keep being far and away the best team. That doesn't typically happen, right? They play a couple games, get a couple good performances, they being the best team in the country, but then they play a bunch of bye games and smoke all of those teams, and so they just sort of maintain that by the fact that they haven't had a chance to cough it up. They keep giving themselves chances to cough it up by the teams that they play, and if anything, they keep solidifying it even more.
Yeah.
And they also keep beating the teams right around them. And it's like, okay, yeah, that team's not as good as them.
Right. There's no disputing who the better basketball team is between these two. It's just hard for me to know what to make of this game when Iowa is 4 of 22 from 3, because they're never winning that game shooting 4 of 22 from 3. They have no chance. Gonzaga's too good. And also, Gonzaga, if that game is played 2 weeks from now and Gonzaga is able to continue to play, I'm not sure that they turn the ball over the way that they did. Because it felt like there were 15 times where Jalen Suggs lost possession of the ball in some way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. Now, I love Jalen Suggs. He was great in this game, and if he's shooting the ball like that, you're done. It's over.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel like it's very easy to point to either of those two. We didn't see either of these teams at their best, I would argue.
And you didn't even mention the reason that Iowa never has a chance to beat Gonzaga unless they shoot it well. They don't play defense.
Right.
It's horrible.
Right. Transition defense, again, a problem specifically as it got going in sort of the middle third of the game. Yeah. I mean.
Like, you will never see... I don't care how good Iowa is playing or how bad Gonzaga is playing. If you put them on the floor together again, I'm never picking Iowa to win the game. Because and this is why I didn't pick Iowa to win the Big Ten, and this is why I don't think Iowa will seriously contend to win a national championship. Defense is optional. You should never lose a college basketball game by double digits if you score almost 90 points. Never. And part of this is because Gonzaga's offense is so good. They've now done it twice, right? They've now won double-digit games twice in which they've given up 88 or more points.
Right.
in regulation, which is just a little ridiculous. But like I felt exactly like this game, it went exactly the way that I thought it was going to go. Exactly. And Gonzaga, right, they hadn't played in a little while. Jalen Suggs, when you have the ball in your hands as much as Jalen Suggs does, you're probably going to turn it over 7 times. I mean, like, we can't act like turnovers from guys with the ball in their hands is actually a thing we care about anymore, because Steph Curry turns it over 6 times a game too. And so does Russell Westbrook, and so does Kyrie Irving, and so does John Wall, and so like
and he has played all of what, 5
exactly
college basketball games.
So like, yes, he turned it over 7 times, but I could care less that he turned it over 7 times.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, in a Final Four type atmosphere, I don't want Jalen Suggs to turn the ball over 7 times, but I also feel like when we get 20 more college basketball games under Jalen Suggs' belt before Gonzaga's in the Final Four, that he's not quite as careless with or at least more careful with the basketball in his hands. But sorry, go ahead. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, and that would be my concern and sort of my.
I think you're just looking for reasons to not be completely all in with Gonzaga.
100%.
But why do this? Why you do this?
And I sort of sat there wondering what happens if they do that against somebody who's better on defense than Iowa. If they turn the ball over 18 times against Iowa,
you're going to play a team that's not anywhere near as good on offense as Iowa.
Right. And I'm
still win by 11, even if it's 77-66 instead.
Probably. I'm nitpicking at this point because there's not a conversation about who the best team in the country is. You and I you were on that from the very, very beginning. I was on that from the beginning. I saw them play and saw Jalen Suggs play. I went, oh yeah, no, this isn't a discussion. I almost felt better about Iowa's chances to win the Big Ten the way that this weekend unfolded, because they did hang around. They got back in the second half. Now, it was never, they didn't pull it within 2 possessions or anything, but there was a moment where I thought they can keep this up, and then Gonzaga kind of slammed the door on them. And it's also just in defense of Gonzaga. I mean, you've got an Iowa team. By the way,
they won that second half by 3.
Yeah,
Iowa, despite all of their runs that they went on and shooting better in the second half, they still only won the second half by 3.
Yeah, and right, if they're 8 of 22 from 3, they're still not. I mean, this game is closer, but they're still probably not winning. And some of that has to do with Gonzaga's defense. And also, you know, how much better would Gonzaga be if they weren't coming off of a 2-week stretch where they basically couldn't do anything, or 3 weeks or whatever it was? You know, we're asking them to come out of being in quarantine essentially and go play arguably the best offense, or at least the best offense outside of their own in the country. And the fact that they did it and made it look pretty easy is incredibly impressive. That's the other part of this too, is that you're evaluating a team that's been playing and practicing against a team that hasn't done anything. And I'm looking for reasons to be concerned about the team that hasn't done anything.
Here's why Iowa's not going to win the Big Ten. This right here. They've got far too many players that are useless on the basketball floor if they don't shoot it well. Far too many. Like, you might
that's how the roster is built.
You might as well just play 3v5 if CJ Frederick and Jordan Bohannon are going to combine for 3 of 15 from the floor, because they're just not going to do anything else. They were 1 of 8 from the 3-point line, and Jordan Bohannon turned the ball over 4 times, right? Like, and I know I just didn't give crap to Jalen Suggs for turning it over 7 times, so I'm not going to really do it for Bohannon. That wouldn't be fair. My point being is that, right, there are so many. Like, Luka Garza had 30 on 13 of 18 shooting.
He was great.
He was incredible. We can put the thing to rest about, can Luka Garza be this good against good basketball teams, because he was phenomenal. They couldn't stop him either. But that's the other thing. What if Luka Garza is just 11 of 18 from the field and he scores 26? Then we're talking about a 15-point deficit, and this looks even less competitive, right? That's my biggest worry with, because, right, if you look at the Gonzaga side of things, right, if Jalen Suggs isn't shooting it well. He's just going to distribute because he's a great passer. And then you've got Joel Ayayi, who had 18 rebounds in this game, by the way. 18. 11 and 18. The guy's a guard.
He's the best rebounder on the team.
It's laugh out loud funny. But if Jalen Suggs isn't having a great game, or they're going and playing a backcourt like Gonzaga, like Baylor's that has a great guard backcourt defensively, then you've got another first team All-American, Corey Kispert. Oh, he's not shooting it well either. Or you've got one of the best bigs in the country in Drew Timme. There's so many ways for Gonzaga to win. Oh, right, and then Andrew Nembhard is coming off the bench. Darn. If Iowa doesn't shoot it well, and this is just right, when Iowa shoots it well, they can beat anybody, including this Gonzaga team. But when they don't shoot it well, they'll still beat most teams, but they're pretty vulnerable. And I don't like teams that their best players become as useless as Frederick and Bohannon do if they don't shoot it well, because it's not like they're 3-and-D guys, right?
Right, and you can throw Wieskamp into that category too.
Right, well, Wieskamp was 8 of 16 from the floor in this one, so I was he had 20 points, so I was not going to throw him in for this particular game because because Wieskamp was good, but right, and you got some good production off the bench from Joe Toussaint and excuse me. Sorry, and my boy Jack Nunge. Anyways, Nunge, excuse me. But the point being is that your best players can't be that one-dimensional, and I'm gonna pick you to do something like have the best record over 20 games or win 6 straight games in the NCAA tournament, because nobody does it that well. And against the wrong team, i.e. Gonzaga or somebody else, clearly Luka Garza being the National Player of the Year level player isn't good enough. Mm-hmm. And what happens if you go and play in Illinois, which has one of the few players in the country that is actually stronger than Luka Garza? then I have real concerns. So you're probably right in terms of like there's probably a net positive in terms of Iowa's chances to win the Big Ten, just because Michigan State and Illinois both looked vulnerable as well. But I felt the exact same way about this Iowa team and the concerns I had previously. And I said this after they beat UNC. Yeah. Like, they've done nothing that surprised me.
Right. You know exactly what you're getting.
Exactly. And what I'm getting is not a team that I have confidence in to win the Big Ten, which is fine, but it just is what it is. But they're good. If you picked another team to go 4 of 22 from the 3-point line and told me that they'd only lose to Gonzaga by 11 and Gonzaga would score 99 points, there aren't very many other teams that could make this game this close. Mm-hmm. So Iowa's good. They're just the team I thought they were, and they have a very real ceiling if they don't shoot it well.
Yeah, and I'm just beginning to wonder whether that ceiling is going to be enough. I'm still not there yet. I share the same concerns you do. I'm just looking at the rest of the Big Ten, and
well, the team I picked to win the Big Ten won by 37 this week. So this weekend. Yes. So I'm not. That's wavering the one team I'm
not concerned about. Right.
I'm not wavering from them either.
Sure, for good reason. It's just you could have spun that one either way. I feel like in terms of you can point to the reliance that Iowa has on getting, because it was the reverse of North Carolina, where Garza, I mean, you're not holding Garza to 10 points. That's just not a thing that's going to happen. But they made him inefficient. They made him really work for it. He struggled. They shot the lights out and launched, 43s?
Iowa, yeah. In that UNC game. Yeah, they were like 17 of 40 or something like that.
Yeah. So you can do it that way, or you can try and do it the way that they did in this game, where they didn't shoot the ball well, but Garza was incredibly efficient. It's just a lot to ask to get both of those things to mesh consistently. And that's what it's going to have to take for this team to win the Big Ten. Or they're going to have to figure out how to play defense, but I don't see that happening.
No. And just simply because they don't have the personnel to play defense.
Right.
It's not really it's not an interest issue. It's a physicality. It's a physicality and athleticism issue. They're just,
and a style of play thing too.
And a style of play thing too. Sure. But right, I think right, expending all your energy on the defensive end if you're Iowa isn't the most efficient. It isn't the best way to try and win basketball games. I would argue. Right. The thing that Iowa wants to do every game is just get into a shootout, because 9 times out of 10, especially when you're not playing Gonzaga, Iowa's going to win that game, whether it's because they're shooting it well or because the other team, like, 355 of the 357 Division I teams don't have anybody to stop Luka Garza, and that's typically enough. But things become a lot closer when you're playing in the Big Ten, and there are a lot of teams that have a chance to beat you if, like you said, it's not meshing quite as perfectly as it could.
You ready for a couple questions from the audience?
Let's do it. Hit me.
Or a couple comments. First one, we do have this, and we'll probably revisit this in our final 5 maybe, but Wisconsin, Michigan State, Christmas Day. I'm assuming you're leaning toward the Badgers?
I'm leaning towards the Badgers just because, right, I know exactly what I'm getting from that team, and I don't know exactly what I'm getting from Michigan State. Like, sometimes Rocket Watts looks like the best player on the floor, and sometimes he's 2 of 11 from the field for 5 points. Like we've
and gets benched for Jack Hoiberg at the end. It got that bad.
How about my boy Foster Lawyer? I'm a huge Foster Lawyer fan. What's up? 6.6, 2.3, 2.4. Absolutely lighting it, but he played. I'm just messing with you. We've talked about this before, that the ceiling of Michigan State has a lot to do with Joey Hauser, and sometimes Joey Hauser just isn't that impactful, right? In this game, he was 2 of 7 from the field, 5 points, 2 rebounds. Like, two teams that are as comparable in skill as Michigan State and Wisconsin are, I'm taking the team that I know what I'm getting from them every single time and twice on Sunday.
Yep. I'm right there with you. I'm picking the Badgers as well. And
wouldn't shock me if Michigan State won the game, but it also wouldn't shock me if they just don't have a phenomenal performance and Wisconsin pieces together a win. Right, because they had that loss to Marquette. Marquette's inconsistent, but also Marquette's on the right night. Marquette's good. Wisconsin really just fumbled the end of that game, and I don't think that loss on the surface is as bad as, or as telling as people sort of thought it might be. Mm-hmm. I think Loyola Chicago was really, really solid. Wisconsin handled them. Rhode Island's good. They handled them as well. In this particular game, especially coming off a loss like that to Northwestern, where all of my worries about Michigan State sort of showed up, how important Rocket Watts is, how good Joey Hauser needs to be, and the fact that Aaron Henry is the most disappointing player in the country in terms of what I always feel like he could be, and he's just never that. And that's not really his fault, and maybe he's just not that guy, but there might not be anybody else in the country that I'm like, oh, if he just figures it out. Oh, if he just finds that negative. Because, he was 25 minutes, he was 5 of 10 from the field, but, just 11 points, and I just feel like he should be better than that. All of that to say, I'll go with the Badgers. And in most games in the Big Ten, I'm going to go with the Badgers because that's just right. If I picked them to win the conference, then of course that's typically how I'm going to feel. But I know what I'm getting from Wisconsin almost every single night. And even Iowa to a certain extent, I don't completely know what I'm going to get from them night in and night out. Up there with Wisconsin is Rutgers. I know what I'm getting from Rutgers a lot of nights. And I know I'm getting Luka Garza every night with Iowa, which is why I'll pick Iowa most nights. But apart from those 3 teams, I don't completely know what I'm getting from everybody else. Yep. Which is why ultimately I'll go with the Badgers, and why it makes complete sense that Rutgers early on is at the top of the Big Ten, because they know what they are, and they are what they are every single night.
And they just play hard.
Yep.
They do all the little things really well. I've got Wisconsin and Iowa in a category to themselves right now, and I'll give the slight edge to the Badgers. I'll take the Badgers over Michigan State, but you know what you're getting. That Marquette loss has taken a different tone for me as we've seen how the season evolved. I got some real questions about Illinois and Michigan State at this point. Our other comment we got pointing out Notre Dame's prestige and this argument that, of course, the College Football Playoff Committee put them in because financially, visibility-wise, you want Notre Dame in there over Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what your thoughts are. There's probably a little bit of validity to that, but also it's because Notre Dame was undefeated heading into that Clemson game that those kind of tiebreakers probably do have something to do with it, but it's only because you were in a position where you were picking tiebreakers
right
between those two teams. That's what I would say.
I think there's certainly something to be said for that. I also right. I'll go back. I will continue to go back to this 8 playoff team thing. Like you get everybody in and you make more money doing it, right? The thing that I don't care how big the brand is. If you add 2 more games to this process, then you make way more money than whatever money you make because you put Notre Dame in. I also just think Notre Dame deserved to be in. Like if nobody in the country would have gotten docked for losing to Clemson. So Notre Dame should not be docked for losing to Clemson. Right. If the playoff committee felt like Notre Dame was one of the 4 best teams in the country prior to that game on Saturday, then they should have felt the same way after the game on Saturday because everybody loses to Clemson. And whoever that team is, save maybe Alabama, probably Alabama, nobody else is going to get dogged for losing to Clemson. So it doesn't matter if Notre Dame's undefeated and second in the country. They shouldn't get dogged for it either. So,
especially when Texas Tech got rolled by Alabama.
Right, exactly. So they both have the same kind of loss, but Clemson also has a win against Notre Dame and a win against UNC, and both of those wins are better than anything Texas A&M had on their schedule. So, except maybe Florida. Maybe Florida's second on that list, but the point is still the same. So I think that probably has something to do with it. I think it would be silly to write it off as not having anything whatsoever to do with it. But I like to think that it's a very small part of the equation and some sort of a tiebreaker if that's what it is at all. Coming up next. Sorry, you got anything else?
No, no, go for it.
Coming up next, we'll talk Monday Night Football briefly. What are you watching? Get out of here on a Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. You're watching 110 Daily on the 110 Sports Network.